What's up, Battletech fans? We're back from the West Coast with yet another edition of Battletalk, and this time my special guest is none other than the creative mind behind such legendary stories as Fox Tales, A Question of Survival, and Without Question. Give it up for Mr. Bryan Young. Say hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I greatly appreciate you being here. And speaking about Without Question, I'm going to want to talk about it in just a little bit. I hope that's okay.
Oh, please.
All right. But first, before I get into that, I want to dive into the meat and potatoes of what we're sitting here doing today. You just had a demo day for Battletech, and as I understand it, this was your very first go at doing such a demo day. Is that right?
Yeah, we had two of them actually, and I've got a couple more scheduled. But I thought, what better way to bring people into BattleTech than combining the book release and the fiction with demo events to show people how to play BattleTech. So I had some help of some Catalyst demo agents on one day, and just some fans that were really into it and had a lot of painted mechs another day, and I showed some folks how to play BattleTech, and I showed off BattleTech encounters, and some other folks were running games, and it was just a lot of fun, and I signed a whole lot of books, so...
That was the other thing I was going to say, is that book signing thing. You know what? That just does my heart so much good, because I keep saying that the brick and mortar retail stores, the FLGSs in our area, are the lifeblood of this hobby. And we got to support them. And getting those people in that door, they're going to be buying concessions, they're going to be buying snacks, they're going to be playing games, and you never know what they might pick up. So big time hats off to you for that. And let's see, you were at the Queen's Realm, if I don't miss my guess, right? In Roy, Utah, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That was the first store we did. We did Queen's Realm in Roy, and then the next day we did Dragon's Keep in Provo, Utah. And we've got events scheduled at Haster Games, which is where I first met you.
That's right, Haster.
In Murray, and then another one called High Gear Games and Hobbies in Taylorsville, Utah, which is a little bit further west. And they've been really great. The stores have been really generous with their space and their time, and they seem to be doing pretty well. And they're all the two that I went to hadn't traditionally carried a lot of BattleTech, but they seemed really excited about it, and were really surprised and pleased by the turnout of the events.
And there is another local player up that direction in Utah. One of the friends of the show, one of our show patrons, Topher. We also got to play with him. I understand you might have already played with him, didn't you?
Yeah, he showed up to the event at Dragon's Keep, and said he was going to show up at Haster as well. But he hung around. I showed him encounters, which everybody seems really excited about.
That was the thing I was going to ask you about it.
Yeah, no, he watched actually as I played against the demo agent and a couple of other fans, but hopefully at Haster we'll get to play some.
Haster is just one of my favorite local game shops. Like, I have that little Cthulhu bag that I got while I was up there. I believe Topher is the one that got it for me. It contains all my movement dice. So everybody just knows now, like, if they hang around me long enough, the Haster bag, I need the Haster bag. So they know what it is. So, all right. Now, were you playing classic BattleTech here, or are we talking Alpha Strike action?
So at Queen's Realm, everyone wanted to play Classic, but at Dragon's Keep there was a table running Classic and a table running Alpha Strike. So it was just sort of a mix. There were definitely a really great mix of veteran players and new players, and everybody just wanted to have fun and hang out, and the new folks wanted to see what it was about, and most of the new folks ended up leaving with either a book or some minis.
That's super cool. And were you playing like a grinder? Did you have an objective-based game, at least in the classic one? Because I know you said you had two tables going on at the other.
At Queen's Realm, we had some folks that were playing that they'd created a campaign that they wanted to try out with some folks. So they had sort of some campaign objectives set during the clan invasion. And then the other one, it was just it wasn't a grinder per se, but everybody just sort of got two mechs and they started going at it.
All right. Like two-man teams, I can see that.
Yeah, and the terrain was gorgeous, and everybody's painted mechs were really fun to look at. And I brought classic sheets for the entire Fox Patrol, and I have an entire Fox Patrol all painted up, and I received as a gift from Robin Briseno
yes.
a new Kit Fox of Katie's that's a dead ringer for the one, stickers and logo included from the
I think
Legends
I've
2
seen it.
book. Oh, it's gorgeous. And so I brought those in case I needed to teach anybody anything. Sure. And I had somebody come and they wanted to play something very low stakes. So we both played Katie. We both tabled Katie.
Nice.
And,
mirror match.
Yeah. And it seemed like the easiest way for me to teach somebody how to play. It was very low stakes. And I knew it wasn't going to last a long time because I had to keep getting up to like sign books and stuff.
Right.
But it was a really fun match, and Katie ended up kicking one of Katie's legs off.
Right. So what I kind of want to get from you is your impression of what the scene is like up there. Because I know when I was up there and I was at Haster and we went around to a couple of the other different stores, there seemed like there was a good rollicking scene out there, but I want to get your first person perspective on that.
So there's definitely the local stores I usually go to don't really carry Battletech, so I had to kind of widen my circle.
Sure.
And the stores that were sort of like just dipping their toes into it, bringing the people there, the impression was there's tons of us here, but we just don't have like a home base store. Roy, Utah is about 40 minutes north of Salt Lake City. Okay. And it was interesting to get a huge group there saying like, we don't really usually have, a place to play, but seeing this is great. And I think they're going to keep up playing there. And then Provo again is about 40 minutes south of Salt Lake City, which is where I'm at. And it was very much the same thing where it was just a lot of people showed up and everybody was really surprised because there's a lot of folks there that love to play, but they haven't had anything really organized. And it seems like this has been, no pun intended, sort of a catalyst for some of those groups.
That was kind of like the intention behind why I started Battlebound in the first place, is because of things like that, where you'd have players that would be somewhere and they would either have no game shop to play at because they wouldn't carry the product, or they had no other people in their area because they had moved there or they just didn't exist, whatever. And I was like, well, then let me just take all this stuff and we will go there and then we will play. So at the very least, you'll have a video memory of the entire thing.
Yeah.
And you get to at least create memories. And that's my segue, because I know that you have a story that involves a fire moth, and I would really like to hear this story.
Yeah, the game I was playing in, it was Jade Falcons. Like the demo agent Tech, who had organized this, and he painted up an entire cluster of Jade Falcons and what he called the lowlanders. So he took all the Alpha Strike figures of the Northwind Highlanders and a bunch of other stuff and sort of painted it a little bit different from them. And so it was that unit versus the Jade Falcons. And I was on the Jade Falcons team, naturally, because apparently I'm the Jade Falcons guy now.
Right.
And first turn, my partner, who I was playing with, ran a fire moth up one side of the map and was pretty well hidden in some trees, but there was an archer hiding at the back of the map with Artemis 5s and a spotter. And he was like, I'm gonna take, it was actually the son of the demo agent.
Oh wow.
And he's like, I'm gonna take these Artemis 5s and I'm just gonna hit that fire moth. And he literally hit with like 40 missiles.
That's insane. Those things are so fast.
he had 2 LRM 20s and hit with everything. And he had there was something he had that added 2 missiles to it. So per shot. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, that fire moth basically just woke up to death.
I don't think it could take an LRM 5 without serious problems.
No, it was tough. I was running a Timberwolf as well, and that Timberwolf it got some good shots in, and they really couldn't do much but sand armor off around the whole thing, and didn't really do too much to it. But it was a really fun game. I mean, every game of Battletech I've played has always been a really fun game. So I don't know why I say that as though it's some sort of surprise or something out of the ordinary.
Right. When it comes to the formats, and I mean Alpha Strike versus Classic, do you have anything that you favor one over the other, or do you find one easier to teach than the other?
Classic feels easy to teach. I mean, like, I taught my 8-year-old Classic.
Mm-hmm.
We play a lot, actually, and we started with the beginner sheets, right, where you kind of ignore pilot skill checks and heat and criticals, and those half pages that they have in like the beginner boxes and stuff are just perfect for teaching, and I really like teaching Classic. I haven't tried teaching Alpha Strike, but I really like Alpha Strike nonetheless. I think for my style of play, I'm more of a story guy, I'm more of a role player, and I really love the ability to do a role-playing situation where we can get to a point where we could go to the table and play Classic if we're in single mechs and we're role-playing like a single lance, or if we're role-playing at a higher level and we're dealing with much larger machinations of politics and stuff, that we could go to Alpha Strike and start looking at, cluster on cluster combat. And use those all, use all the tools of the games that Battletech gives us to tell us a story.
I'm over here pumping my fists because that's just so near and dear to my heart. I am absolutely a story person myself, and in our campaign that we do here at home, we have something that's very similar to that, where we have videos that I send the players, and they get like a little mission briefing based out of it, but then they go and play, and whatever happens, and then later on, if I need something big, we go to Alpha Strike. And there's going to be story points that I can't get across unless I have a huge battle. Something big has to happen, otherwise you don't get that big fight feel. And I feel like Alpha Strike is perfect for that, but it gets a lot of heat, because they say it's, watered down streamline. I'm like, man, you got to take these things at their strengths and use them at that time as tools to tell whatever story it is that you need to tell.
Yeah, very much. I look at the Star Wars corollary, and you've got X-Wing and Armada, and it's just a different scale of combat. But Alpha Strike does give you that much larger scale so that you can put 40 mechs on one side or the other, and the game doesn't take 9 years.
Yeah, gosh, you're not kidding. I tell people all the time, this game that we're playing out right now, we couldn't get it done in today. We'd have to take at least 2 days, and that would be us just going and unless you have a speedy player who can just knock things out left and right, which I don't know too many of those, but you could take that same game in Alpha Strike and bang it out in an afternoon and get the entire thing done.
That was actually the really fun part about it. I mean, you were at KerenskyCon, and we did Randall's big birthday game, and it was 28 people playing Classic, and I have no idea how we got it done in like 3 hours.
Well, weren't most of them like expert level players?
Yeah. And then you had Mike Stackpole and me and going like, so wait, what am I rolling again? I'm kidding.
Right?
But no, I'm not kidding. Actually, people were really helpful, but it moved really fast. But also when you get a battle that big where everybody's piloting one mech, you tend to have actually 6 games going simultaneously.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Because you'll have a fight over on this side of the table that doesn't affect anything going on over there. And we've had that where the players go, can we just resolve our stuff over here? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's not going to mess anything up over there.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mike, I understand Masters and Minions, y'all going to be there. Is that true?
Yeah. Mike and I, as far as I know, we signed up to be a team again this year. This will be our 3rd year in a row. I have no idea at this point what we're fielding, but it'll be fun. My first year, Mike fielded some Kell hounds, including Morgan Kell's Archer, and I fielded Katie Ferraro and Archie Colorado.
Very cool.
And then last year I fielded G Chistu and Archer Pride in their Shrike and Gear Falcon, I don't know how they pronounce it. And Mike brought some more Kell hounds. He had like a Timberwolf and a I don't know, something else. And this year I have no idea what we're doing, but it'll be a lot of fun, and we always have a great time with those, even if we don't win. We've never won. We've barely taken out a mech or two. But when we do take out mechs, it's spectacular.
Oh yeah. See, and that's what I was just fixing to ask you, because this is actually going to be my very first time going to Gen Con, and we finally got the tickets. So I'm like, all right, the dream match. Like, you know, me and my friends are putting stuff together. So I'm like, oh man, you just waxed that, or had that fire moth get waxed. Should I be watching out for your team?
Yeah, no. So they do a really good job. The demo team does a really great job of matching battle value. So I know, like, the year I had Katie Ferraro's Kit Fox, everything else was like a heavy mech on the table. So Katie had like a 1/1 pilot skill.
Oh, nice.
You know? And they adjusted the loadouts of the mechs to sort of keep the battle values pretty consistent. So even if you showed up with a Fire Moth and it was the only mech that small, they're going to find ways to match the other team so that you're not going to have a bad time, or at least you're not going to feel like you've been too outmatched.
Sure, you'll feel like you got an even Stevens shot at everything.
The great thing about Masters and Minions is that the demo team folks paint the mechs, and they paint them in duplicates so that, like, we can keep the mechs that we've asked for.
Oh, okay.
But then we play with the other versions, and then whoever takes our mech out gets to keep it.
Yeah, the bounty. That's what I'd heard.
Yeah. So that was why it was so rough that first year with Katie Ferraro, because there was a Fox Patrol fan at the other side of the table who was just like, I want Katie's Kit Fox. And so they just chased her around the map and killed her as fast as they possibly could to claim that mech.
And as we were speaking just a moment ago about GE Chistu, I do want to kind of dive in a little bit. I don't want to spoil anything, but I want to dive in a little bit to Without Question, if that's all right with you.
Oh, please.
And as I've said in the past, you've seen my review, a much needed breath of humanity in the Battletech universe. But the big thing that I love so much about this book, and I want to tell everybody, because I've told you, but I want everyone else to hear this, is it made me feel a lot like I felt when I was reading those Robert Thurston novels back in the day. I'm talking about Falcon Guard, Way of the Clans, those novels. And I say that because reading those books then, the Jade Falcons read very much like I would want them to read as a teenager. I was, 13, 14, 15 years old then, and they were the gung-ho, never, say die, who cares what happens to everybody else. We're on a single-minded mission, and we're angry, and I wanted them to be angry, and that's why I loved Joanna, because she'd been beaten down so much, and she was always so angry about it. But it's funny, as I have gotten older, I'm just kind of starting to lean a little bit toward Clan Wolf, especially after the Paws versus Claws 2. And so when I got into Without Question, I'm reading through it, and I'm just like, by the time you get to the end of that book, I don't want to reveal anything, I have opinions, you realize you're dealing not with the same Jade Falcons that you were dealing with before. And again, I'm sitting here going, especially that passage I told you about, which I don't want to reveal, it made me go like, GE Chistu is like the grow-up guy for this. I mean, and especially during that conversation there, and I feel like it's grown with me. Does that sound weird? Do you understand what I mean? Like, no, that makes me go, I identify with this again.
That's exactly, that's kind of exactly what G's had to go through, right? Like, 20 years out of game, right? Like 20 years in our universe, we've had pretty much like Malvina Hazen in charge of the Jade Falcons.
Yeah, and I couldn't.
They've been doing a lot of evil around the galaxy, and they vacated everyone they felt was valuable and on their side from their occupation zone, and they left what they thought were the dregs, and they got pretty close to annihilated. And so the people who are there have to grow up to reckon with what Malvina's done to their clan, but also the trauma that Malvina's instituted everywhere across the inner sphere that Jade Falcons have come through. So they have a lot of work to do, and you have to grow up to sort of deal with that legacy. You almost might want to rebrand, but I think they're too proud for that. Like, there's still that strain of pride and arrogance to a lot of these characters that are Jade Falcons, and that's their identity, and they're not going to give that up even if they are changing what it means to be Jade Falcons.
Yes, you don't have to give up. who you are, you can grow and you can say, it's all right to say the way we were doing things before may have worked or may not have for a certain amount of time. But if we continue to do things this way, it's going to be like one of those grinding machines that just grinds everything up, and we're all going to collapse under our own weight here, and it's not going to work anymore. And that was going to be my next question, was that the genesis of that whole maturation arc for them? Is you saw this stuff with Malvina and said, I've got to put a Band-Aid over this?
It wasn't so much a Band-Aid. It was really sort of the cards that were dealt me with Tamar Rising. So my introduction to G.E. Chistu was Tamar Rising, just like everybody else. I'd known that he was in MechWarrior Dark Age, and he had, one of the click mechs, which when I got the assignment to write a question of survival, I went and bought one on eBay so I could have it on my desk. But reading Tamar Rising, G just felt like he was in that position, but the story I had to tell, that I was asked to tell by the line developers, was to figure out a way to match G's story opposite the Ghost Bears and sort of introduce the idea of what's going on with the Ghost Bears in the Racelheg Dominion for stuff that was going to come out eventually in Dominions Divided.
Sure.
And so I didn't get to explore a lot of what it meant to be a Jade Falcon and what that was in A Question of Survival, because they were so focused on just surviving.
Sure.
And then when I had the opportunity to pitch this second novel, some of the constraints were like, we'd really like you to take on the Battle of Sudeten. And then wherever you want to go aside from that, just let us know and we can talk that out. And my pitch for Without Question remained pretty well the same. And that was where I felt like I could really explore that idea of like, what does it mean to be a Jade Falcon?
Thinking
now
that exact
that
same
gone.
thing earlier. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get excited. I was thinking that exact same thing earlier. What does it mean to be? Who are we?
Yeah, especially because I think that the fiction is sort of like touched on it a little bit here and there, but like not in a really direct way, like I tried to do with Without Question, where you've got the clans that have been in the inner sphere for 100 years, right? And so the inner sphere is going to rub off on them in ways that they might not expect. But also with the mercenaries that get portrayed in Without Question, they've had 100 years of dealing with the clans, and so the inner sphere is going to change based on having 100 years of exposure to the clans. So kind of seeing some of those role reversals and some of those evolutions, switch or change or rub off on each other, I found really interesting science fiction, in there, in how they react to each other. Especially, right. I kind of feel like, honestly, in this book, it's the mercenaries that have the honor that the clans arrived with and said was so important, and it's the clanners that face these new Jade Falcons that all have none of it. Because I don't think it's any secret, it's not a spoiler to say that the Hell's Horses come to fight on Sudeten, and they refuse to take the Batchal of GE. They refused to issue one. Yeah, they refused to issue one, and GE's like, cool, we don't have to fight them honorably anymore. Like, if they don't want to do this honorably, we don't have to fight back honorably. And 3/4 of the way through the battle, the Hell's Horses cons are like, wait, maybe this was a mistake. Issue the Bachal. And he's like, G's like, time for that is past.
Yeah, you've had your chance.
And there's definitely some elements of the clans from the past of Jade Falcon that come back to sort of haunt G in ways that feel very evil and dishonorable. But it's the Lone Wolves who say, like, listen, we don't necessarily need payment. We'd love payment. You're not going to hire us because you're holding to this, but we're going to help. Or just everything that happened with the Tomcats on Antares. So it's like the mercenaries have learned something from the clans that seems like the clans have forgot, and I found that really interesting to explore too.
That redemption there, at least ways, that's how I felt. Like, I felt like at the end of that novel that Clan Jade Falcon was again a group that I would sit at their table and be like, all right, let's see where we're going from this. And that part, that's the one I want to give my hats off to you for, is bringing me back to the Clan Stabby Burb. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I hear that a lot, actually. I'll get messages, really upset messages from folks, with laced with expletives saying, I like the Jade Falcons now. Like, damn it. Like, why are you doing this to me? And I'm okay with that. I'll live with that. If that's the worst criticism I receive from people who've read the books, I'll be okay with that.
Right? So I understand you've got some graphic novels coming out for Battletech, right? Didn't we talk about that a little bit at Kerensky Con? Or is my brain failing me there?
At Adepticon, we were able to announce it, which was a little bit after Kerensky Con. Not much after, but it all blends together. But Mike Stackpole and I are going to be collaborating on the 4 graphic novels that were promised in the Kickstarter for Mercenaries, and we're working really hard on it. Eldon Cowger, who's a longtime Battletech artist, is going to be doing the illustrations.
Love Eldon.
And he's gonna be doing all the artwork for it. The story we have to tell is spread across all 4 graphic novels, so it's one big story. And I'm really excited about it. Obviously, since it was the Mercenaries Kickstarter, you're going to see a lot of mercenary action in it. It's set in the Ill Clan era, and there's going to be a lot of really fun surprises in it. I'm really excited. Like with the story outline Mike and I have, I'm really sad that comics take so long to make, because I just want to see it now.
See, I love that, because the graphic novel is just one of my favorite storytelling formats. I'm a huge fan of Will Eisner. Don't know if you know him.
Of course, the spirit and everything.
Man, yeah, just one of my absolute all-time favorites. So hearing that Battletech is coming to that format, I can't wait to see what y'all are going to do with it. And I got one other thing I want to ask you.
Okay.
Fox Patrol Force Pack when?
So that's something, I mean, if you want to see a Fox Patrol, I actually had the owner of Queen's Realm ask me, like, this book is really popular, this Fox Patrol one. When do we get the force pack that comes with them? Because when we do, I want to have another big event and we'll sell both of them like hotcakes. And I was like, you and me both. So if you want to see that Fox Patrol force pack faster, I would say let Catalyst know. I know that they were really kind of taken aback at Adepticon by how many people came up and asked about the Fox Patrol. So I think we might be seeing more Fox Patrol stuff coming in the future. And I know, like, right now as we record this, I literally finished my day's work about 5 minutes before we stopped recording on a new Fox Patrol story.
Yeah.
There's more Fox Patrol ahead on the Reddit AMA, or no, the Catalyst Discord AMA that I did to promote Without Question. I was able to tell folks I am working on a Fox Patrol novel as well. So
fantastic.
There's a lot more Fox Patrol coming.
You've got another book coming up, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so in Q1 of next year, we've got Voidbreaker, which is the next Battletech. It's written. It's in various editing. It's in fact check right now, actually. It's already gone through 1 round of edits, so it should definitely come out on time. And it tells the story of Tucker Harwell and where we saw him last, and how he gets from there to some other unanswered questions. And it involves the Sea Foxes. And I will say that it's a really a rollicking thriller of a spy novel, actually. There's plenty of mech action in there. I don't want people to think that it's just a spy novel and not plenty of mech action. There's plenty of mech action in it, but it really does sort of follow the spiritual footsteps of, like, Ian Fleming James Bond novels.
I was just thinking James Bond, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you like those Ian Fleming James Bonds, and really want to see what that might be like with a Battletech flavor, Voidbreaker is really the book for you.
Folks, you heard it here first. Voidbreaker coming out soon, and Without Question, available now wherever fine books are sold. I greatly appreciate you, Bryan, for being on the show. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. And folks, if you like what you've seen so far, do us a big favor and hit that subscribe bell down there. Turn on all notifications so you can find out exactly where Battlebound's going to turn up next. My name is Tuck Davian for my broadcast partner, Mr. Bryan Young, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time right here out on the Space Lanes.
Remember, you have to be a subscriber and leave a comment. Crowdfunding is when lots of people give you small amounts of money to help your passion project come to life.